I'm Grace Alfar, reporting for Austin Indie Media. Today, we're interviewing Robert Jensen on his speech, Capitalism versus Christianity, A Tale of Two Cults. Why are you against capitalism when capitalism has proven to be a system that has risen millions of people out of poverty in China?
It's certainly true that capitalism is one of the most wildly productive, probably the most wildly productive economic system in human history, largely because of fossil fuels. It's also true that capitalism has benefited millions of people. The rise of the American middle class after World War II, the way in which the Chinese version of state capitalism has lifted many people out of poverty. But by that account, you could support Nazi Germany, because after all, the rise of the Nazis in Germany also pulled a lot of Germans into economic prosperity. The question isn't, does capitalism produce prosperity for some number of people? The answer is yes, it does. The question is it sustainable over time? And can it do it on a global scale where, in fact, all people of the world have access to the same kinds of resources? And the answer is no and no. It's a profoundly unsustainable system. And it's also based on the assumption that there will be these disparities of resources and income. So the fact that it benefits some says nothing about its long-term viability or its short-term moral accountability.
Are there any other ways to develop the underdeveloped world without using a system of capitalism?
Well, we have to ask what we mean by development. Production for what, for whom? Right? So I don't think there's a way to maintain the incredible level of material production that capitalism currently provides. Nor am I sure that we should want that, not only because it's ecologically unsustainable, but it also has dramatically changed how we understand ourselves. So when we talk about development without asking, what do we mean by the good life? What does it mean to be a human being living the good life? We suddenly then value production for the sake of production. And I think a lot of us understand that, in fact, in some ways, less is more. That for those of us who've lived in an incredibly affluent period of American history, that affluence has not produced fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, that after a certain level in which your material needs are taken care of for food, water, shelter, that large increases in your consumption, in fact, don't increase your deeper sense of fulfillment. And so we have to ask questions about all of these, not only the ecological issues, which of course mean that capitalism's unlimited growth obsession is fundamentally untenable, but also what does it turn people into? Now, that's not to suggest that poverty is ennobling somehow. We do have to lift out of poverty people who are currently consuming the least, right? But that means a leveling, not a lifting up of everybody to the same level of consumption, but a leveling of that consumption. And the first world has to come to terms with that before it starts preaching to the third world about how to develop economically. It's not only a question of the relative level of consumption in the first world, places like Europe, the US, Japan, relative to the global south or the third world. It's also a question of consumption within society. So you can go to the global south and see extremes of the distribution of wealth and power there as well, an internal elite. You go to Mexico and you will see some small subsection of the Mexican population doing quite well and a growing middle class, but entrenched poverty. So we have to look at this both on a global scale and within societies. And that leveling is inevitably the only thing that is going to, first of all, I think make ongoing large-scale human societies possible, but also bring us more in line with our own stated values, the values that respect the dignity of all people, the values of equality and solidarity. That leveling is essential to it. We see what happens when extreme disparities in wealth and power define a society. They not only destroy the ecosystems, they destroy any sense of human community.
Will voluntarism be a strong enough global force to affect political and economic changes around the world in a positive way?
No, of course not. You know, the changes we make in our individual lives and levels of consumption and reorienting our priorities are important to living out an alternative and coming together in institutions, churches, social clubs, other kinds of voluntary associations is important to lift up those choices. But in the end, the political system has to change policies. We have to reformulate the economy. We have to reformulate how we distribute political power. Voluntarism isn't an answer to the sort of impediments that are thrown up by concentrated wealth and power. They're simply one road that we move down at the same time that we try to reformulate large-scale political institutions. It's not an either-or. But voluntarism, meaning, you know, the choices we make in our own lives like this, are important because they bind us to other people more strongly, and they provide a sense of the hope that people need to move forward. So changes in lifestyle, you know, recycling more, walking more, you know, not driving big cars, those alone won't solve the problems of ecological sustainability. But by living them out, we bolster our own sense of our own power and connect to other people in ways that can be very fruitful.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.